Okay, and yeah, that works.
Excellent.
Yeah, we already know. We already know it's gonna work.
Cool.
Okay,
Here we go.
so hi once more. So
Hello, everyone.
Chris Vella, Steven Kirshner. First off, like, subscribe, support Active Articulation and Streetwear Bears. And email her right now because I believe her website is down, unfortunately, Active Articulation. And I'm gonna go on like a little rant because I feel like this has been kind of in the public social sphere for a long time, and I feel like maybe older generations really got this really well, and I feel like a more formal culture would sort of have this kind of codified somewhere, and maybe I don't get the whole thing, you know. That's kind of how I got here, because I feel like until I got to this point in my life, I didn't really completely get the whole thing enough to verbalize it. But I do feel like it's something completely normal that most men would get, and even most women would get if I explain it well enough. So I'm a normal Western, I guess, older millennial. Unfortunately, when I look at the numbers, that's the number I fit into. I'd like to think of myself as some Generation X type character, but I'm 31. I was born in 1990.
I'm a little older than you, and I'm still a millennial, technically, so.
We're sorry. Our generation apologizes for furries, but that's not the point. So, okay, so I was scrolling through the Facebook, and I see a post that I've seen more than once for decades at this point, and it's like, oh, it's not that women don't like nice guys. Maybe you're just not that nice. And it's like, okay, let's face it, that's a whole thing where, okay, if the shoe fits, that's your problem. Let's start there. You know, I got no problem with the post existing. However, it also doesn't make any fucking sense. That's why if the shoe fits, it's kind of your problem, because it's like, okay, you have to buy into some bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get through it as fast as possible, my whole thought process, and it is complete, so it should be doable that I can complete it, and then me and Steven can go into it. Like from top to bottom, we can cross-section it. But I'm going to try to like complete it. So essentially, like, okay, there is that thought process. I'm not going to say that nobody believes that thought process, especially women who maybe haven't heard what I'm going to say before or anything like that. And some men too, younger men are not, it's going to be harder for them to understand what I'm saying. And even me coming upon this, like, it's like, oh, I just noticed that. Like, have I been doing this instinctually?
Yeah.
And I feel like to a degree it's like, yeah, but that just means it's something somewhat universal and it should be codified in some way. So what am I saying? So, nice guy. That's already just a term that doesn't mean anything. A guy is trying to be nice to you. That's nice. That's a nice thing to do, but that's a decision he's making. That's not his identity, you know. And if you think he's nice, that's your taste, and that's fine. And he can try to be nice to you and all that. I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't define him. What were you going to say?
Well, what I was about to add to your point was, is it conditionally nice or unconditionally nice? And I forget if it was you or who I was talking to about this, like the whole concept of white knighting and everything. Like, women think a guy's being nice, but he's just trying to get laid. Whereas I have female friends, but they know I just see them as friends, and they just see me as friends, and I'm loyal to my girlfriend. Like, they know I'm not being friendly with them in the hopes that they'll do this. It's just I'm friends with them because I enjoy their company.
And it's true that doing that is disgusting. Like, it's exactly that. So it's like, let's start where how are the women right in this instance? How is the person who posted that right? Well, unfortunately, the world is filled with these fake-ass, quote-unquote, nice guys who are following these social mores in order to blend in with mature people and people who value, consent and character and other people's feelings, right? And so these people are perfectly willing to fake giving a fucking fake socializing so that they can have a trophy, let's say, a trophy for their ego in terms of sexual conquest, or some short-term pleasurable experience, one or the other. So it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's what I mean. Like, what's a nice guy? To me, nice is always conditional, and that's why it's like, yeah, definitely look at that guy sideways. Like, I even understand where the kind of like reject him a little bit no matter what comes from, because you have to be that to a certain degree as a woman, I think. I don't know, even as a man, of course, because if you are, then you end up being the catcall guy. You end up being the super assertive creeper, and you can't, you just have to do that anyway.
Well, the catcalling guy is the equivalent of someone throwing out all these fishing lines, hoping something bites, and when something doesn't bite, they just throw out other lines, and there's a point where it's like, you're just hoping for the easiest thing, you're not actually searching for a quality partner.
Right, exactly. Okay, precisely. And that's how they look at the nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's nice to everyone. Oh, he's got no standards. Okay, and that's kind of, it's not even, okay, it's not a problem. What am I trying to say? So there's a degree to which that is true. But then you can't replace nice with something else.
Yeah.
It's not as though if you walk up to someone and you tell them, I don't like black coffee. Like, immediately once you meet them, you tell them your standards on something, or you tell them what you don't like about them, or, don't get me wrong, there are women who will be attracted to that. But and I'm not saying so exactly. So let's start. Men, by a certain age, I would say by the age of 15, have probably accepted, most men have accepted more or less that women kind of are attracted to conflict to a certain degree. And if you're just nice and you have no kind of fight in you, they're not going to be that attracted to you. And there's a reason for that, and you accept that. You accept that you want to be strong, you want to be something, or maybe you don't. What I'm saying is that there is a certain point where if a man is nice to you upon first meeting you, and he's attracted to you, like he's nice to you and he's not flirtatious, let's say, and he's attracted to you, and you get frustrated at that, and you go, oh, there's a degree to which he's actually testing you and you're failing the test.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that applies to someone who's literally faking it just to flirt with you. But the fact is that you don't flirt with everybody. That's the same thing you do when you reject someone. You're like, I don't flirt with everybody, and you have every right. And I'm not saying you don't have a right to reject that person. I'm not telling you did anything wrong. Let me start with that. Like, in love, more than in war, all is fair. Because you're not supposed to be hurting people for the sake of hurting people. You want happiness like everyone else. So let's start with that. I'm not telling you not to pick who you want. I'm telling you that there's an immature nice guy with the quotes around it, and there's a mature person who's polite with strangers before he gets to know them.
Yeah.
Because you don't share every part of you with a stranger immediately.
Yep.
And he wants something that's stable for some reason, for whatever reason, for his own reasons, for mature reasons that have to do with his character, and not with his most common denominator, his body, which everyone, you can just do that with anyone. There's no reason to test them, right? But everyone by the age of 15 or so knows that if they want something fast and gratifying and a trophy, and what you do is you go into a situation where things can happen really quickly, and you're really confrontational, and you're not a nice guy. You try to be not a nice guy in a passive-aggressive sense, sort of, where there's an opening for the conflict, for them, to be interested in, and you be kind of the supportive thing within that conflict, the supportive thing within the storm that they cling to oddly enough, and you become this lightning rod, and they don't mind because they're in a short-term experience anyway. And you learn this from a young age, like, oh, if I want something fast, I'm going to have to do something fast. And it makes young men do stupid shit really fast. Go into conflicts that are stupid really fast. It's not good for them, to be honest with you. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not trying to blame anyone for anything. I'm just describing human nature, okay? And women go through things as well because of men and what they're like, absolutely. What am I trying to say? So, okay, there would be this guy who's very nice, and it's just because he's trying to flirt with you, and that's it. But that guy, 9 out of 10, unless you're talking to someone with very little social experience, that guy's probably very young if he thinks that by being nice, he's going to impress you. Because being nice really is the bare basic standard, right? Everyone should be polite with strangers or whatever, or just acquaintances or whatever. It's like, okay, and I'm saying that's not impressive, and I get it. What's impressive is being able to go past that and not offend anyone. And that's actually true. I agree. Like, it makes sense. What I'm trying to say is, if the guy's nice and he's giving you the opportunity to walk all over him socially and then not giving you the opportunity to fuck up anything else and just waiting to see what you do, and then you go, oh, this guy hasn't immediately gratified kind of the most cathartic part of me that, you know, I could gratify in a nightclub or whatever. Therefore, this person lacks something. Maybe, not maybe, definitely to a mature man, like definitely mature men do this test every single day and get frustrated when people keep failing the test. When it's like, look, I wanted to have like 1 or 2 casual conversations with you. Like, I wanted to see if you could keep up a conversation first, at all, you know, about normal stuff, about nothing, about space, about whatever. And then maybe, you know, like, because I've already been through enough shit where it's like, no, I'm not trying to roll the dice for nothing anymore, you know. And I'm just speaking about myself. There's people older than me with more shit on the line and all this and all that. And it's like, it comes to the point where it's like, you must know this by now. You must know by now that people are putting that, and it's okay, because you're not supposed to flirt with everyone. Why should everyone think I'm attractive?
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'd rather be nice, and that's what nice guys are, and that's good, because you're not just a sex machine, and that's fine, you know. And if someone finds you attractive anyway, that happens too. It's, you know, it's not a simple A to B. If you're a dickhead or an asshole or something, they're going to be attracted to you, and if you're nice, they're not. I'm just saying that literally, in the adult world, the ratio of guys who are opening the door for you so that they flirt with you is probably like 1 out of 10 or less, like 1 in 20. Like, they're not opening the doors to flirt with you. They're opening the doors because they see a woman and they think, oh, I would like to carry something for someone who maybe is less physically able to do so. And they do so because that's what they should do. And they're not trying to engage with you, so they just do it for you. You know, it's specifically to avoid an engagement, and you know that. Like, and then you'll start maybe conflict for attention, and that's okay. Like a little conflict, a little bickering. I love a little bickering. I'm not trying to criticize anyone for how they communicate or how they flirt. Only I'm trying to inform you that if you actually would like someone that's being nice to be polite to a stranger, no matter who they are, and you wouldn't like someone to see your reaction to people who are just being nice to you, no matter who you are, and giving you the chance to sort of walk all over them because they're being nice to a stranger. You wouldn't like them to think, oh, they just walk all over nice strangers. You might realize that, yeah, because it does seem like there are people that are completely unaware that a man would be nice to a woman for reasons that aren't flirtatious.
Yeah.
At the very least, not in the, like, that there's so many levels to that that it's like, of course not. Like, of course you're just going to be nice to everyone if you're a mature person. And it has nothing to do with how nice you are, if you're attractive or not. Does it have anything? Like,
Well, so okay, so I was gonna. Well, I mean, there's a lot in that, but what I was gonna say in part
Yeah.
is it also depends on the person and what the goals are. Because, like I said, I mean, there are white knights or beta orbiter types who suck up to women to try to get laid, but then at the same time, there are people, like I said, because this is a debate I have with certain people:
Yeah.
can men and women be friends? And like, I'm in the camp that says yes, but I have a few friends, both male and female.
he's a king. He's got lots of female friends.
But I know I know a number of men and women who actually say the opposite because they
Right.
believe that it always just comes down to sex. Like one woman that we both know, like she talks about she has trouble having male friends because a lot of them just end up trying to get with her or eventually develop feelings and want to get with her. So it's like they
Like
just
my
let-
male friends. No.
so it doesn't last, and then it's the same thing with a lot of. And then other women will say, I'm not friends with guys for the same thing because they try to do that with me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm worried they're trying to get with me or they will over time or whatever.
Right.
And my point is that it can happen, but you have to lay down those boundaries clearly. This is what I've said before about, like when I started dating my girlfriend, we both said, like, this is what we want long term, these goals align, let's work out.
That's magic. I don't think everyone's capable of that. Like,
But-
I think I'm more of an organic, intuitive type, but I'm
But I'm saying-
legitimately impressed
But
with
I'm saying to a certain extent, I think
how well you can contract that. I'm
But
sorry.
the thing is,
Good job.
I think to a
Good
certain
for you.
extent, men and women have to do the same thing with friendships. Like, for
Yeah,
example,
they do.
like, I have a female friend, like, she's told me, like, I have a lot of respect for you, but don't worry, I'm not flirting with you, whatever. And then, like, but then I've also said, like, no, I'm loyal to my girlfriend, don't take this the wrong way, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, we draw those boundaries clearly. It's not like, oh, I'm doing some underhanded thing to try and get close to her to make a move.
Right. Okay, yeah. And why
And
did I
think
say
people just need
yeah.
to be on? People just need to be honest about that stuff.
100 exactly. And what was I saying? I was saying that, like, because it all started with me saying codification, all this bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying, like, basically the nice guy test, and I can't speak for everyone's tastes.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone's got different tastes, and some people like less stable people probably than me, perhaps, or less supportive
they're
people
attracted
than
to
me.
me for some reason.
Right, like, like I feel the same way when I feel like someone's attracted to me. It's like, wow, well, what are you thinking? Are you suicidal? Like, what's going on?
One theory I've heard from me is that because I come from a very like stable traditional family, certain people who don't have that, they kind of like yearn for that because it's like, oh, here's a shot. Maybe through him, I have a shot at like a stable, normal life that I didn't have.
Yeah,
There's that angle.
That's cool. Like, what I'm trying to say is, I feel like the nice guy test is necessary to find a stable, supportive person. Like, and you can go back and look at the Bronx Tale and see, like, I'm not saying, like, they say the Bronx Tale is based on real blah, 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 they always say that about these movies. And I don't know, how real it is. I just know that process in the Bronx Tale, they have the door test, and the guy basically teaches this kid how to kind of gauge how conscientious a woman you're taking out on a date is by basically putting her in a position, or putting yourself in a position where the car door won't open if she won't unlock the door for you, and basically that if she does not unlock the door for you, that you've only seen the tip of the iceberg of this person's neglect for you, and yeah, it's not that you don't want to be the majority of the support as the man in the traditional relationship, at least that's how I am, it's that, like, literally, if there isn't, it's also like Hitch, exactly, there were these movies that sort of talked about courtship, and how even though we had feminism and equality, and it's like, yeah, everyone should be communicating, everyone should get what they want and be willing, be able to say what they want. It was like, yeah, the man goes 90% of the way, and the woman will end up having to go 10% of the way for that kiss.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's kind of the man showing he's assertive and courageous, and that he wants her so much, he's willing to go out on a limb. And men honestly are used to that. And the more reason they have not to be confident, the more used to it they have to become to flirt with anyone. And, and that's why a lot of men end up in these like male, say like men's rights organizations. It's not necessarily like, because women know like, yeah, men are the ones laying bricks and in the military and all that.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that. So it's like, what are you trying to tell us? Well, we're also trying to tell you like, those guys who are confident, those might be the least confident ones, just like you guys. Like the beautiful woman, it's easy for her to be confident.
Yeah.
And all that. And it's the same way, and we have it in the inverse. And if you can't see that, you're going to be incredibly insensitive, right? So,
but the thing that
nice guy test matters. You got to give them the nice guy test. See if they walk all over the stranger who's nice, just because they can. And don't get me wrong, you can be a dick, and you can have this dickish relationship and catharsis forever. But one day when you lose the fight, what happens? Or one day when you're not nice, what happens? Sorry.
Well, what I was going to add is with the beautiful woman thing, though, I think that kind of goes either way, because I think some of them are very full of themselves because they're good looking and they get attention. And I think others, there's a certain uncertainty because they know that a lot of guys are just sucking up to them because they're good looking, and then like, how many guys would be here otherwise? Like, a female friend of ours, like we were laughing one day about how a pretty woman could post the most inane nonsense on Facebook and it'll get praised just because she said it. Like, yeah. I think of this one woman I used to work with. One, she wrote something one day like, I was eating Doritos and one fell inside my bra. Yay! And it got like 100 likes.
Yeah.
But it was because she said it. And then like this friend of ours said she did this as a test. She just wrote, I'm eating lemon meringue pie. It got like a few hundred likes. And it's like, but again, it's because she said it. Whereas like if I said that, people would be like, so what? Whatever.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't, it's not their fault really any more than, exactly. So what? I don't know. I would actually, like, I agree. Like, you shouldn't like a guy just for being nice to you. That's not a character trait. That's a choice. Like, it is a character trait to be responsible enough to be nice. Like, don't get me wrong, but
you can't build attraction off being nice.
Okay, yeah, not by itself.
No.
Because even being nice is a decision. Like, what does being nice mean? And if you guys don't agree on what being nice is, if you don't have similar tastes, at least to that degree, or you understand what she likes, or she understands what you like, some level, then you're not going to be able to be nice to the person.
But I would put this question out there too. I'm curious what anyone would say. How many women would say, what, like when you ask women usually, what were you first attracted to by your partner? It's rarely that he's nice. Like, that's the thing. And like,
sure,
again, there are biological reasons for that. And I'm not saying the men treat them poorly, but I'm saying women are biologically wired to like certain things. And I mean, obviously,
it's impossible to like the nice guy, exactly, because he's not doing anything, because he's not changing anything, and therefore he's not producing anything. So what makes him a guy? What makes him a man? And I try to be a really nice guy to a lot of people, but I'm not even arguing with, like, that's the thing. So it's like, maybe you're just not that nice. No one's that fucking nice. You're nice when you make the choice to be nice, and it's good to be nice to people. It's good to be as nice to people as you possibly can, but you can't be nice all the time. And let's say that I get with someone who likes me because I'm nice, right? And I pull that off, right? What happens that when I go crazy? There's going to be someone else who's nice. He's going to... That's it. That's the end. Like, it's better, like, literally stupid as it is better she just likes the color of my hair. Like, because at least that's genetic, like, sort of. It'll go away slowly, but it's like, literally, that won't change. My choices are going to change, but it's better she like my taste. It's better she like anything but, oh, he better be nice to me all the time, because that's not going to happen. We're going to have disagreements about what nice is. About what nice is. Let alone, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying anyway.
I have to find it too, but that book that Silas and I are discussing currently, it's called Marry Him, the Case for Marrying Mr. Good Enough, and there's a section in there about, they said that even the most successful couples have, I think, up to 4 areas of disagreement. And that's the thing, and like, I've thought about this with my own parents. I mean, coming up on 37 years of marriage, they argue about stuff. I mean, it's mostly politics and stupid stuff, but like, there's no couple where it's like we get along 100% of the time. It's impossible.
I would say that the most stable couples are probably the ones that if you ask them, like, what do you disagree with your, or what do you two disagree about? The most stable ones are probably the ones that could list it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and wouldn't mind, and maybe they wouldn't like everything the other one has to say, and they would have critical things to say, but they've gone through all the conversations and know what the other person's gonna say, and will do it all again if they have to. And the least stable ones would be like, oh, we don't really argue, we kind of agree on everything but one or two things. And then really they're constantly having this invisible argument. They won't talk about, like, it could be aggressive, but they just don't tell anyone about it.
Well, because like with my parents, what I've noticed, and my mother has said this, because for those who don't know, my dad is a left-leaning Democrat, my mother's a conservative Republican.
We're not going to get into my parents.
But what we've noticed is they argue about stuff. What I've noticed is that broadly speaking, they actually agree on a lot of the same stuff. Like, they're both Christians, they're both family-oriented, they both, obviously are critical of government corruption. They both have some socially liberal views, like regarding legalizing drugs, stuff like that. So it's like, broadly speaking, they agree on a lot, but it's more their tribes and like the way they were brought up. But like broadly, they agree on a lot more than they disagree. It's not like
that's sweet.
It's not like you have an ultra social conservative and like a social justice warrior or something. Like It's not where it's like there's a clear clash of ideas all the time. It's like they agree on more than they think. It's more tribes that
Overton window, man. That Overton window went somewhere else. But yeah, I basically got out like, I just kind of wanted to say it. I didn't say it kind of how I expected to say it, but I did say it, it just seems like that's what, because when the nice guy, generally, at least the nice guy's my age, and I'm not that old, okay, and I speak to other people, and they're not surprised when, women don't really like nice guys, because we've been through this a million times. But that nice guy, he does get hurt when you walk all over him when he's nice. But it's not because he's like, oh, I don't have what it in me to assert myself. And he doesn't think that's what it is. He's like, oh, another woman I can't rely on.
There's a book at home. I have to find the title for you, but it's a book about assertiveness. And I was looking into this because this was an area that I actually considered myself weak in, and it has good exercises you can go through. Mm-hmm. But the book is very good because it lays out the difference between being passive aggressive, assertive, and passive aggressive. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, assertive is sort of recognizing your own boundaries and standing for them when need be. Yeah. Being aggressive is violating other people's boundaries. Passive is letting people walk over your boundaries. And passive aggressive is some degree of letting people walk over you but pushing back too. And being assertive, of course, in a healthy way, but there can be various reasons that people aren't, and that can get into like insecurity. Some people are used to being passive, and then when they stand up for themselves, it's not received well, so they're afraid of change. There's all sorts of things that go into that.
Right, and then I just realized, there's another side to it, where it's like, she can, like, okay, but why does she walk all over you?
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of the real conclusion, but anyway, let me make sure. Okay, so guys, basically, all of this is subconsciously going on in millions of men's heads anyway, right? They might not know they're giving you a test, but if someone said, "Oh, don't worry about her, you're a great guy," he wouldn't be like, "No, I'm really not worth anything." It's like, no, he wouldn't know. I was a nice guy. She walked all over me. Thanks for the pat on the back. He's not going to think you're crazy, right? So why did she walk all over him? That's cruelty, right? Well, and this is actually for the nice guys, and for women too, like, maybe you don't know what you're doing. Like, I don't know what I'm fucking doing all the time. So why would you be offended that he's being nice it's not attractive to you, but why would you want that person to flirt with you unless you weren't rejecting him at all? You were rejecting him not flirting with you. And I actually went through that recently, oddly enough, where I took the time, and I'm not going to say anything about anyone, I'm not going to say anything, but I took the time to say, hey, you want to have a conversation later ever? We could have coffee, we could have tea, we could smoke. And you know what I mean by smoke, okay, guys? Let's not, we're all adults here, okay? And I was like, look, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You can act like nothing ever fucking happened, you know? But here's an option. It's yours. And that's specifically what I did, how I did it and all that. And first, the person goes, first they ignore me, like, which is fine, which is like, okay, yeah, like that was the point. If you completely ignore me, it's all done. Yeah. And you can tell everyone about it or no one about it. It is what it is. She apparently told people about it. It's like, okay, good. And she ends up saying something more or less in front of me, like, I don't like how this guy acts. He acts kind of slick. And I end up hearing it, and I go, like, again, I wasn't really trying to flirt with you, like, but that's a fine reason if you don't like someone's body language. Like, it's like, that's valid. Mm-hmm. I still don't, walk by this person, hey, Basically, apparently, this person accused me more or less of doing the opposite of what I did, and I did the thing I did on fucking camera. And the people watching the cameras had to be like, look, he's on camera. Like, I'm not sure what you're talking about, because we're always, we're here too, So what I'm trying to say is, and I had to analyze how, what's going through not this person's head, but what's their emotional, where did these chemicals come from? And it's like, no, you don't do that if this person is not, first off, like I said, I specifically did exactly what I did. And then the person was like, oh, he's doing the opposite. So, and this person knows, right? It's impossible, because I'm specifically, I'm very specific, because I'm in the position I'm in, and we're all in the position we're in. And that's also my philosophy. I have a whole philosophy that centers around consent, And one has to wonder how one would get offended by, say yes or no, and then you pick no, and the guy's like, good job, you picked no, and goes about their day for a few weeks, because that's fine. Everyone gets to make their own choices. One has to wonder how someone's offended by that, and it's like, I wasn't supposed to take no for an answer, I guess? Somehow. And that's the thing, and to be honest with you, that's the thing. So, right, and we don't get that. We don't get that. We don't understand that, and that's impossible for us to understand, okay? Because we're now in that position. So it's like, okay, it doesn't mean you can't say no to me. It means once I give you that option and you tear it up, let's say, that's the boundary, that's it. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
You can't get mad at me when you set up the boundary. I'm not even saying, oh, you walked all over me, to be honest with you. That's not what I'm talking about. Now I'm talking about the other side, where it's like, well, I was a nice guy. And it's like, okay, yeah, being nice just because you want something, that is disgusting, and it makes sense to test somebody.
Yeah.
Which is why, if you're just testing somebody, what you would do is you would not text immediately. You text a week later, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I was busy, And it's true, you're busy. That's what you do. That's all. But it's you have to accept those, like I do. I have to accept that, yeah, I'm going to be giving people the nice guy test for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Because because, like, why invest in anything else? Why invest in anything that can't survive that test?
Well, my thing is that I've been nice to the wrong people and been taken advantage of, so that's why
Right.
I'm kind of wary of, like, is this person nice to me out of general concern, or is it just they want something, and then it's like, you know, so I just sort of gauge, like, okay, how long before they ask me for favors, how much did they do it, you know, did they do anything for me? Like, I remember I worked with this guy a few years ago that everybody despised, and I remember, like, he was annoying because he's one of these, like, could you do this? Could you help me with this? Could you give me a hand with this? Could you do this? And you'd ask him for help on, like, one thing. Ooh, sorry, gotta go. And, like, he did that with everybody, not just me.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like, you're not gonna help him. Then he would act like, oh, you have a bad attitude. I'm like, I do shit for you all the time, and I ask you for, like, one or two things, you never will. It's like, well,
He's just
you know.
manipulating.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. So, it's more or less that. Like,
Yeah,
it's
what else? I'm
like-
trying to think of any
What-
other points. Oh yeah, the other thing I was going to add is they talk about how you can judge a person's character by how they treat staff or they treat the help. I think a lot about that myself, especially coming from a food service background.
Yeah.
Like, my thing is, if service is bad in a place, I sort of weigh whether it's things beyond their control or it's something they're not doing. Like, if the person is slacking or obviously doesn't care, that's when I complain.
Yeah.
But like, if it's like, okay, someone called out, they're understaffed and they have to hustle, like, I'm not too mad about that, you know.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say, basically, is that. Well, anyway, I'm not mad, obviously, about a meme that has some inaccuracies in it. There's going to be millions of those. But basically, yeah. It's not that the guy isn't that nice.
Yeah.
Nobody is like, oh, that you don't get women like, and I think that's what kind of hit me about that freaking meme.
Yeah.
It's that specifically the problem with the nice guy, quote unquote, is that he thinks he is entitled to quote unquote PU star Y,
Yeah.
you know, for being nice, and he's fucking not. Being nice is the bare standard of fucking, you know, like, and that doesn't mean you don't, you know, being a dick is illegal, and that, you know, having flings is, sorry, I'm handing your face or whatever,
No, that's all right.
but having flings is illegal, or, you know, having young, or even when you're older, whatever. I'm not telling you how to live your fucking life. I'm telling you, like, wow, how far has this narrative drifted from reality, where a mature guy who like, you know, isn't immediately like on that woman's ass. 9 out of 10, like, there is almost no modern social context where that guy is doing that for any reason in this script, in this modern script, for any reason other than he's a dope with a low social IQ, or he doesn't have the power in society to be a dick yet. There's no like, oh, he might just want a nice girl that doesn't need him to be on all the time.
Yeah.
He's clearly as impressive as he is. He can't hide what he is. So whatever it is, you know, whatever, you know, but he maybe he just wants a person, a human being. That's totally out of the fucking picture, you know, men or women. I don't know. I can only say from my own perspective.
Well, the other point that I think it was Kevin Samuels who said this. I forget if I brought this in a previous discussion, but the whole idea of the bad relationships are ones where people keep score. Or I've also heard this calling it keeping or people having people having covert contracts. You just talked about contracts and the terms and all. Well, the problem
and
with
that's why I apologize, because I was joking, and I was specifically joking about how to be that organized and for it not to feel like that is cool beans. But continue.
But what I was getting at, like what he was talking about, and I talked to my girlfriend about this too, is the unhealthy relationships are where one member of the couple does all this stuff and they expect all this in return, but they don't make it clear that I'm doing this because I expect that.
More or less, yeah.
And then what ends up happening is the resentment builds up, and then it eventually erupts. It's like, hey, I did all this for you, why are you doing this for me? And then it's, well, I never agreed to this. But,
and it might just be verbal appreciation. Sorry, continue.
and basically, and that's the problem, is that, but then it's the person who did all this stuff becomes resentful. The person is like, wait, I didn't know I had to do this. You know, then they felt like they're torn between either feeling guilty or like, well, I'm not doing this anyway. And, you know, it just creates this whole thing. Whereas if you make it clear, like, okay, this is what we're both looking for long term, but we don't know whether that can happen for us yet, but let's just see how things go.
Yeah.
So this is something in between, because you were talking about being organic versus contract, and I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
this is sort of a bit of both. Like, in the broader end of things, we're seeing the bigger picture, but at the same time, like,
Good
I don't
luck.
have any, but there's not an exact time frame, like, oh, we date this long, then move in, and then we date this long. And
It's not a launch.
Yeah, it's not an exact frame, but at the same time, broadly speaking, it's okay. We know broadly where we want to go, and then again, it's just the details as things go.
Yeah. Making it a launch was a mistake. Sorry.
It's not an exact science, I guess you could put it that way.
Yeah.
Because like it's like rocket science. They say it's not rocket science. It's like it's not an exact. Yeah.
I'm saying like I had a visa thing,
Okay.
and there was a certain amount of time it had to be done in, so it's like T minus.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But I'm not gonna get into that. And I think I had like another note sort of to get into about the other thing, where it's like and meanwhile we've come so far with this nice guy thing, and I feel like the nice guy thing is deliberately fucked up by the media. Like, you're not supposed to, like, exactly, like, the nice guy, he must want something from you. And don't get me wrong, be suspicious
There are
of
those people. Yeah.
Exactly. Be suspicious of everyone. And the more, like, superficially nice they are,
Yeah.
absolutely, the more suspicious you should be of them. Like, I do get it, but again, you take that and you take the absolute truth of it, and still that meme where it's like, well, the problem is you're not that nice. That's not it. That's not it.
Well, we were talking about my friend the other day, if you remember our conversation at Valhalla, where my friend who's super happy and upbeat, and our other friend who's a bit more depressive said something like, oh, she's in some kind of optimism called, everything's happy.
Yes.
And basically what I said is, I kind of have mixed feelings on that, because on the one hand, the friend is a bit more negative. I do agree with some of the points, but at the same point, I mean, I overall lean towards optimism, and I think optimism can be motivated more easily. But I also think there's a point of optimism where it becomes naivete, and it's like you just think everything's good all the time, and it's like that's not really how the world works either.
I love listening to different, like, not so optimistic philosophies rationalize optimism. It is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in life is trying to rationalize optimism to the different people.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, that's why I like Jordan Peterson. Like, he's like a neuroscientist that's like, you should believe existence is good. Why? Well, because it's like, and he'll get into all of these little intricate things that you'll notice in your life because of neuroscience, because of how you are, and explain kind of like how Stephen will explain things sometimes statistically and scientifically, and I'll do that too. Like I said, it's like my favorite thing, like the Mouse Utopia experiment.
Yeah.
We're all going through in the Western world to a degree the Mouse Utopia experiment right now, and you can see what's happening where there's like the different classes of mice. Like, I'm sorry, I might not get into the whole Mouse Utopia experiment right now, but it's real bad. Like, do you know about it? I might get into it if you don't know anything.
It's one of those, like, I've read the summary of it, but I don't remember all the details off the top of my head.
Okay, so I'll just go through it. It's pretty simple. So there's like, let's say 1,000 mice. There's a scientist. He wants to know what it's like if you make a community, and that community basically constantly has enough food and water. So the community more or less has no quote-unquote capitalism problem. Okay? And so what happens? So it's mice. So what happens, long story short, the mice, because they have no real conflict that has like kind of a goal with an actual objective prize that's necessary, because that game of survival is gone and the instinct for survival is still there, they end up projecting that instinct onto one another, and they end up not being able to socialize without confrontations. And these are mice, so they end up having physical confrontations. So what ends up happening is, so the mouse civilization, if you call it that, collapses, and the mice can't figure out why, and they have more than enough food and water. And then what ends up happening is, obviously the mice, they're not just reacting to the food and water. Sooner or later, they're reacting to the fact that if you engage with any other mouse, you're getting into a fight. And you don't know why. It's just your reflex and their reflex. So what? So there ends up being two types of mice, because there's two ways that you would react to this.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my god, sorry. So there's two ways you would react to this, and the first type of mouse, they're called like the perfect ones,
Mm-hmm.
and they're basically constantly grooming themselves and making sure they look perfect and making sure they're always well fed and they're not injured,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't reproduce. And then there's the other half, which are constantly, basically they don't feel pain anymore. Like they don't rationalize, like they don't have any fear. They just sort of keep they stay in the fight. They keep getting attacked. They keep bleeding. They have like scars on their tails.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're like the imperfect ones, let's say. And those end up being the two separate classes of mice, and they all stop reproducing.
Mm.
There is no Ubermensch in the mice.
Mm.
They just pick two different, impossible to sustain ways of living because of the abuse that they're going through, which is basically communism and its effects. And it's the effects of slavery, like living in like on a plantation and being fed and not having any freedom. And like, okay, so that's it. That's the Mouse Utopia experiment. And yeah.
Yeah, I think I read a summary, like there's a Facebook post about it or something, but it's basically used as an argument against totalitarian systems, right? Like that's basically the point.
The Mouse Utopia experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah, like exactly. It was originally conceived of as a utopia. Like, let's prove capitalism wrong. Like, why should we just be subjected to like Hobbesian, let's say, nature? That's the idea.
Yeah.
And well, the reason why is because it's part of us.
Yeah.
You are subjected to Hobbesian nature.
Yeah.
You're Hobbesian nature. Like, that's part of why Hobbes was wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, if you avoid that shit, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you view it as like separate, anyway, it's
But
deep.
there's also some theories too about why Hobbes wrote what he did, because he lived during the English Civil War, and because he was like a higher up himself. Like he saw the king get overthrown and killed, and he was freaking out because he thought, this is chaos, how's this going to work? And there's some theory that he was kind of projecting his own concerns into his writing, because the idea of, oh no, my status is going to be taken away and I'm going to struggle, so I have to fight to keep it, and I have to justify why a strong man who should be in charge will let me stay. Again, some of that's like, armchair historical psychologizing, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and to the degree that, well, anyway, what's that? Occam's razor? Like if it's simple, it's probably that's what it is. Like he couldn't. Like nobody's ever doing anything that isn't projecting. The moment, even if it's true, that truth becomes part of you.
Positive projection too.
Yeah, like exactly. What you know is a part of you, and so what?
Well, the other comparison I was thinking of, I think we talked about The Last Samurai at one point.
Yes.
And the way the movie is presented, for those who haven't seen it, maybe some spoilers here, just in case anyone wants to see it. The movie presents
it's a new movie.
Well, the movie presents it as they're fighting in this ancient way, and basically their lifestyle is going to be taken away and everything. That's why they're fighting to prevent Western influence. What I was reading was in real life that they were actually modernizing themselves. The concern was they didn't want their status being taken away, because under the Japanese feudal system, you have the emperor, then you have the shoguns, you have the daimos, and the samurai list, and it's like they like that system because they're held in high regards. But then under closer to a capitalist, more liberal Western sort of system.
It was classism.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
purpose.
Exactly. It's like they're that.
Like in most places on Earth before quote unquote capitalism, that thing
But that's
we act like is bad.
But that's the thing. They knew that under that system, their status would be taken away, and they'd have to actually either prove themselves or find jobs or whatever. I mean, not to say they didn't prove themselves as warriors and all that, but like they wouldn't be guaranteed that status. They would have to prove themselves somehow or find other jobs. And
Right.
They were fighting to maintain that because they didn't
maintain
want.
slaves.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry. Like I'll be honest with you too. Like so, the ones that were modernizing or westernizing or whatever,
Yeah.
that was just some clans fighting against other clans.
Yeah.
So they would have been the clans that retained some of their status. So there's no real like, it's not perfect, just like everywhere else on Earth. Okay. Yeah. Like what was I gonna say? I think
Calhoun. It's not Calhoun. Because I've heard Mouse Utopia. Samurai keeping status. Hobbes.
Yeah, like, that's all. Like, I definitely think that men should have to go through that test of, like, oh, if I reject you, if I say no, if I don't like something of yours, whatever, are you going to act like a fucking baby or something? I think that's a necessary fucking test, and that guy who can't pass that test is out of his fucking mind. But
I remember when I delved into the manosphere stuff a while back, one thing that they actually said, and I've noticed this in my own experience.
You're both testing each other. You're adults. You should be. Like, that's what you're doing. Like, what do you do? Like, what are you having, what are you, 5? Sorry, continue.
Well, one thing that they notice is that, and I've sort of seen this in my own experience too, is that if a woman says no to you, handle it gracefully, because they've shown that if you fight and make a big deal, not only will she still say no, but she'll write you off from any potential relationship.
And she's right to.
Yeah.
That's what, exactly.
Whereas there are cases of guys getting turned down, and then the guy develops himself, or whatever. They spend a lot of time apart. And then when she sees him, he's evolved a lot. So it's like I've seen this with like people I knew in high school that they weren't really interested, but then over time they developed, and then they got together because it's like you've both evolved, and it's like now we both have something to offer each other.
But if the moment you're nice, she thinks you're flirting, you'll never be friends, and that's the thing. And if she rejects you just because she's trying to flirt, and I know that's like a fucked up thing that many women will be hurt by me saying, but we do see that. We do see that when you say no flamboyantly, it's kind of for attention.
Yeah.
And no doesn't need to be done flamboyantly. And if you were actually kind of creeped out by that person, or you didn't want to, you would do it as not flamboyantly as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Like in real life, like when I've gone through this, and when you really you just like do it as not really as possible. If possible, you don't even reject that person. You know what I'm saying? The more freaked out you are about how that person's going to react when you reject them, the less you reject them. And rejecting them is almost trusting them to get rejected, right? Like, that's the thing. That's the thing. Rejection is not the worst thing in the world. Sorry, go ahead.
You said something earlier about people just wanting drama, and I thought of a woman we knew, and the whole thing about, saying she wasn't with this guy, but then, she really kind of was, and then she wanted to get with this other guy who had a girlfriend, and then complaining, she wasn't being treated well and all this, but then it's like, do you actually want relationships with these men, or do you just want the drama and to get the attention and to be a damsel in distress? Yeah. I won't mention any names, but you get my point, I think.
Yeah. As at least slightly for comedic purposes.
And it's not just her. I'm saying I've seen this behavior elsewhere too. But
of course. No, I totally.
Any woman or even person who just says I don't like drama, that's immediately the opposite is true.
Right. It's almost exactly because drama is a word that you don't understand until you've engaged in drama.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and we all know what drama is, and we know that there's ups and downs. Yeah. And that's why nobody completely stable likes drama. No disrespect to all the people that do. I'm saying that it's not a stable thing, and that's why you do it with shows and not with real life.
I'm considered stable and I like drama, so there you go. It's like,
I'm wrong. See, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about this.
But notice with me, like I don't say, oh, I don't like drama and then cause all these problems. It's
Well-
like I acknowledge that, yeah, I laugh at some of this stuff, I find it interesting, whatever.
That almost doesn't count to me as liking drama. That's
Yeah.
not what I mean.
I don't want to cause problems, I'll say that.
Yeah, anyway, you hear what I'm saying. To me, liking drama is, oh, there's a problem around me. Ha ha ha, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, things, I kind of accept that I can't change the world, so I laugh at things, and I do enjoy, it looking at how things really are.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more kind of how you are.
Yeah.
And I grew up around real flamboyantly dramatic people that actually enjoy making a story more, say, attention grabbing than it is, and will make things up. And enjoying a good story is one thing, and liking it enough to make it up is another thing. And I guess I did just sort of go through a story, and this is a fairly young person, so I don't want to be too incredibly harsh, even though a person did generally just sort of try to ruin my life, sort of, and if I wasn't literally on camera, who knows?
Yeah.
But I also, we're all humans, and for some reason, someone educated this person to be that stupid with other people's lives and shit, and it's that's decades of bad, authority figures. That's decades and decades and decades. I can't possibly lay it all on this person, but
you can't sort it out in a few minutes either.
yeah, I can't sort it out in a few minutes. I'm definitely no longer honestly interested in the conversation, to be honest with you, for all the obvious reasons. But
a lot of it
some
too,
part of them enjoys drama, right? And just press the button.
A lot of it too, and I guess maybe listening to a lot of Manosphere stuff has made me think about this. A lot of it is that there's a lot of money in selling lies. A lot of these self-help gurus and whatever. It's they tell people things they want to hear, and that's how they make money. But there's not as much. It's harder to make money from telling people things that are true to things that they don't want to hear. But it's as long as
and there's a lot of money in marketing to women.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Women are the larger consumer base, and again, women, like men, tend to go for a lot of things that they want to hear. So there's a whole industry that can put out things that here's what you want to hear. Do this. There's no consequences. Whatever.
And just like men, and sometimes you help us out by criticizing us, but just sometimes, just like men, the thing you want to hear is not actually good for you to hear.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not true. And, I'm not saying that you should hurt someone just to hurt someone just because something's true or something. You hear what I said. I said sometimes the thing you want to hear isn't necessarily the best thing for you. And sometimes, you got to hear the harsh truth.
Yeah.
And it's not that harsh. It was only harsh because people have been telling you shit.
Yeah.
Just shit you want to hear for so long that you're actually worried that the guy who tells you the truth hates you and is there to kill you. Because in the true story, you die eventually, and maybe if you never hear anything you don't want to hear in that story, it's okay. It's like a hiccup. But maybe if you never, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Making sure you weren't choking on
Always. Yeah. But maybe in the story that you, some children don't know they're going to die.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's you don't want to raise someone into Arrested Development. You don't want to raise someone into somebody that doesn't know that things can happen that aren't what they like, and that when things happen that aren't what they like, it doesn't necessarily mean they're under attack. Sometimes it's just the weather.
Well, I think I might have mentioned that former Cosmopolitan writer Sue Ellen Browder, she wrote for Cosmopolitan starting in the 60s, sort of the height of the sexual revolution, and she's an interesting case because she pushed this whole like sort of like the precursor to Sex in the City, the whole like go out, sleep around, you don't need a man to commit to, have fun, all this. She ended up getting pregnant, had an abortion, ended up regretting it, converted to Catholicism later in life,
I'm really
and
sorry for this person.
and she actually came out and said, I sold women lies. She's like, I basically sold women lies to sell magazines and to make our advertisers money. And if you think about things like Cosmopolitan, that's what they're doing. Oh, here's how to seduce a man, here's makeup you can wear, here's how you can have your hair done, go out, fool around, live this lifestyle, but it never ends well. But the thing is, they don't tell you that it doesn't end well, because as long as you believe I can do this and be happy, they'll keep making money off it.
I'm not. Anyway, lots of people know me.
Yeah.
Okay, I am who I am.
Yeah.
What I am going to say is that he just said that, right? I have another side to this.
Sure.
So, and you can find this on YouTube somewhere, even though they tried to purge it off.
Of course.
But basically, and more than one woman has done this. They dress up as men. And they see what it's like to have male privilege. And I hate to say it, other than feeling like you have, anyway, I don't hate to say it because I actually love my life and myself, and honestly, my favorite thing about my life is the people that love me and are willing to love me, even though I am not a perfect person. I am just another animal like them, right? But what I'm trying to say is, when this woman, a journalist, a psychologist, like a real person that went to college and learned all this feminist stuff, okay? She dressed up as a man, and she went in there to find out how oppressive these men were and how privileged they were, okay? And what she ended up finding out is that being a man is really hard, and that men were actually really warm and loving to each other. And that was the only way that they survived. That being a normal man, just a normal person, I'm not saying anything glamorous, I'm saying the opposite. The non-glamorous men, the normal guys, the guys who work at the gas station, the guys who work doing construction, the guys who work at the convenience place, everywhere. The normal guys. Being like that compared to being a woman is like a low-scale war where they all have to sort of be there for each other to a degree, unconditionally. And she found the opposite of what she expected. And everyone who met that person thought, this is a gay dude, and they didn't care. They didn't think it's a woman. They thought like, because she was wearing something to make her chest look a certain way. And she already did sort of look a certain way with the haircut she had. All this, obviously, we all look, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You hear what I'm trying to tell you, that you can find this documentary. I can even give you links if you want in the comments or in the description, because I can show you. It's in parts, but it's still there, even though you tried to purge it. And it's like, I'm not telling you to be a pushover, women, okay? Or men, for that matter. I'm trying to tell you, of course you can't feel what the other person feels, and it doesn't mean they're not going through anything. And women don't like to accept the things that they go through for no other fucking reason but their own bodies.
Yeah.
Which isn't their fault either. It's no harm. It's not like, oh, that person's character's bad because their body attacks them once every fucking month or some shit. Then that means everyone with an autoimmune system is just bad character and shit. Like, everyone just sucks ass. Like, no, like, we've been done with eugenics for so fucking long. Like, that's not how people interact. Like, that's not even... If this were a dominance game and people cared if you were dominant, then the game's already over, man. Like, people have been losing for millions of years. And that's just part of reproduction. And if you listen to the feminists, if you keep going down the rabbit hole, that's where it fucking goes. Where it's like, all heterosexual sex is
Grape, we'll call it.
Yes.
Say that get flagged, yeah.
Good job. I was going to say without consent is non-consensual, an expression of force. And it's like, well, clearly fucking not. You might be offended that to a degree because it's more natural that even the stuff that isn't consensual is easier than some things that some people might do consensually. That's offensive. That's like, oh, inequality between the straights and the gay. And it's like, yeah, that is sucks. That's unfair. That's unfair. That some things that are non-consensual are easier than some things people do that are consensual. That's unfair. That's just real life. That's fucked up. I don't think, that.
But, well, the thing,
what are you gonna do? Fight
like,
with God about physics, guys.
Well, I mean, life in general is unfair, and that's the stuff that always comes up in these discussion, men versus women. I'm not arguing.
We'll make a law. We're gonna make anal sex have no negative consequences. Okay. Sorry.
I'm not. It's not
The
the
butt plug law. Everyone will get a free butt plug for
God.
equality.
Oh
Sorry, continue.
Well, but the point is not that it's not that women have it better or men have it better or one has it worse than the other. It's just advantages and disadvantages, especially at different times and different ages. Like the point that always comes up, like pretty young women get into clubs for free, they get invited to parties, they get bought dinner. But at the same time, okay, that youth and looks has a certain expiration date on it, whereas as men,
and they're being exploited for men's attention.
But also we in our 20s we'll get much attention, but as we make more money and accumulate more status or whatever, we have more value. But at the same time, we have to work for that, but it comes at a later time.
Right,
So,
and
again,
that's harsh as fuck and sucks,
So,
and makes for some bitter ass people.
Yeah. So but again, it's not one has it good, one has it bad. It's just advantages and disadvantages at different times and places.
And let me be straight, and I'm sorry that this has come so late into our conversation. I'm gonna have to go, but everything I say, and it might seem like I have a bone to pick, and maybe I fucking do.
Yeah.
But every bone I ever pick about this intimate shit is to prevent bitter people.
There you go.
To prevent myself and other people from not seeing some shit coming, like has happened to me in my life sometimes, believing a false story and going down that rabbit hole, going, to the end of that rainbow, and there's not fucking anything there, and you gave part of your life to it. You gave maybe a decade or two, and that's where midlife crises come from. And I'm not saying that's impossible, it's like impossible to get through or the worst case scenario. No. I'm telling you that reality, accepting reality isn't the worst case scenario, and the faster you do that, the better off you are. And reality isn't one-sided. You're right, nice guys, that ain't shit. And assholes, that ain't shit either. You should be looking for a specific person. And Stephen will say, settling, that's good. But to a degree, you're settling, but you're also getting one specific person. You're also getting something that's very specific, and you're not settling at all.
Well, that's a whole other conversation. But my complaint is that people overuse and misuse the term settling. Like it's like, everyone would love a partner who's perfect, but there's not someone like that waiting for everyone.
Right.
It's like
there's no one like that waiting for anyone.
No, exactly. That's my point. So you accept that this benefit comes with this trade-off comes with this benefit, and it's just weighing what is the overall best scenario.
Anyway, it's not really... Anyway, we're about to go,
and
this is just a final thought that isn't even a conclusion, it's just a final thought. I guess I don't understand the idea of calling it settling, because no matter who you settle down with, they're not 100% of everything, right? They're not like...
But are you 100%?
And you're not either. What I'm trying to say is, but let's say, and I've been in this position every time I've ever tried to settle down, you're in this position. She is not perfect, right?
Yeah.
And you're quote-unquote settling, right? But does that mean that the boundaries of your relationship are let's say you really look at her and you're really being honest with yourself and you're like, fuck it, she's a 68, she's a 68 out of 100, and you're like, I love the person, but in terms of like bare basic like sexual drive, she's like, but you love the person. Are you really going to have 68% relationship with that person and boundaries and shit like that? No, you're going to do 100%. You're not really settling. You're 100% of yourself all the time. Never settle, even when you settle down. Love that person. That's special to you, because nobody's perfect. Everyone's perfect. Blah, blah, blah. I'm insane. I'm trying to help. But it is what I believe. I'm serious. Like I'm saying, like that's how you do it. It's not a score. It's not a score, and that's why the guy with the high score, of course he's gonna be nice to you if he's giving you a chance. And if him being nice to you, to give you a chance, if your thought is like, well, my only option seems to be to bend over backwards for this guy and kowtow to him because he's so nice, that actually doesn't come off as a rejection. It comes off like, anyway, and I just felt like the need to sort through that shit because it's like, yeah, of course nice guy doesn't finish last, really. Like, because nice guy doesn't exist. You choose whether you're nice. They say Hitler was polite as fuck. He was a vegan, he loved animals and dogs, he had this pretty family, and he was Hitler. He's the eugenicist. He came up with, he is Eugene. That's him. That's Eugene. All right. Anyway.
We've been a little over an hour, so
Yeah, bro.
Now. Any other stuff we could discuss? I mean, there's other stuff I probably could say, but it's just going to go on.
And I should start cutting this stuff up
Yeah.
and making segments.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Segment 2. All right. Thanks for dealing with us,
Thanks for
guys.
listening. Bye bye.
Have a good night. Peace.